Okay. Well, folks, we're here in session number 106. We're in the last three sessions in dealing with the issues in Mark. And of course, as you know, lately we've been well beyond Mark, looking at Christ's Passion Week, his death, burial, resurrection, and then his time with the disciples and others after his resurrection. Well, today we're going to be looking at Matthew 28, verses 16 through 20, known as the Great Commission. I want to tell you that these last three sessions are probably going to be rather brief, maybe 15 minutes, possibly even less. The last one would probably be a tad longer, but no more than 20 minutes, I would suspect. Anyhow, we're winding down with Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Mark in particular, and then we will move on to a separate topic, one that doesn't take 108 sessions. It'll be a little bit more brief. Well, a couple questions, as typical in these last days. What happened after the meeting at the Sea of Galilee? This is where the guys had gone fishing, 7 of them. Jesus met them on the bank. Then he has a session with Peter, in which Peter is reaffirmed and reestablished in his original role of leader. And so what's next? What was Jesus trying to accomplish after the Galilean time? Well, this episode, again, this is actually Matthew's closing statement to his gospel. So we're going to actually finish up the notions that Matthew has to add. After the breakfast on the seashore, Jesus evidently gave his disciples instruction at another time and another place. Apparently, this will be back in Jerusalem or the vicinity thereof. Well, let me begin by reading a couple verses from Matthew 28. We're going to read verses 16 and 17 to begin. So the 11 disciples went to Galilee, to the mountain Jesus had designated. When they saw him, they worshipped him, but some doubted. There were still evidently, and I don't know whether the reference here to some doubted is still among the 11. There's no indication of what they doubted, only that things weren't settled and fixed in stone in their minds. So we see, again, Jesus accepting worship without objection, something that no one other than God is to do, and is going to support his claim, of course, that he is equal with God, and therefore he is worthy of worship. And his being equal to God is essentially saying he is God. What the doubt of some is about, we don't know. It's unlikely that the 11 would still have doubts, because they had seen Jesus, most of them, at least 3 times. But the doubt may not be about Jesus' resurrection, but about what it meant for what is next, because you'll see somewhere along the line in these last sessions, the guys still anticipated that Jesus was going to set out his messianic government now. So that may have been what the doubt was about. We don't really know. But again, along with the 11, there may have been others who had some doubts about some things, others that may not have seen Jesus as often as these guys had. So, we don't know some things, which has been typical all the way through the study of Mark. We had to say many times, we don't know. We aren't told. We can suspect, but we cannot know for sure. Verse 16 seems to imply that the disciples probably left Galilee and then returned, but as usual, we're not told of that either. Matthew didn't cover any of the early post-resurrection appearance of Jesus except for the appearance to the group of women. So Matthew has not spoken about any time that Jesus appeared to the 11. Mark's comments on Jesus' appearances are sketchy. They appear only in the contested verses from Mark 16:9 to the end of 16. Remember, that's the one that we're fundamentally skipping, saying we can't be sure that that was part of Mark's gospel. Mark's comments, again, are very sketchy. Luke skipped from the first time Jesus appeared to the 10 on resurrection evening, that is, all the way to the final appearance of Jesus in Jerusalem just before Jesus ascended. So Luke has a big void in here as well. Only John fills in most of what we know between the resurrection and this meeting on the Mount, probably in Galilee. May have not been, but we suspect it was back in Galilee, the way Matthew described it. Since Matthew records none of that covered by John, he may simply be telling us that the disciples went to Galilee sometime after the resurrection, leaving open the possibility that they were in Galilee the whole time until this event, with the exception, of course, of Sunday evening. Matthew leads his readers to the location of this event based upon the angel's message to the women. You remember the angels told the women, go tell his disciples that he will meet them in Galilee. While the particular mountain's not named, some believe it was Mount Tabor, the most prominent mount in Galilee. But again, it's not named. It appears that some still doubted. Weeks, maybe a couple of weeks after the Resurrection Sunday, and after several appearances of Jesus, there were still some of his followers, perhaps of the 11, but most likely others, still had some doubts. And if the 11 had doubts, as I said a moment ago, it's probably over when Jesus would institute his messianic reign. Well, since Matthew doesn't say when, what, and to whom this appearance took place, perhaps it records the time of Jesus' appearance, even to 500. Paul told us about that in 1 Corinthians 15:6. He mentioned that after Jesus' resurrection, he appeared to a lot of people, and at one time, even 500 people in the same appearance. Well, if that's true, if that was where this was, then some of the doubters among the believers, even at this time, is offered as evidence of the integrity of the Gospels. Admitting doubt at this point is very unflattering. It seems that they had to understand about Jesus and his resurrection by this time. But, no, the Gospels say, no, there's still doubt. Nevertheless, Jesus gave those present the so-called Great Commission. And as I said, this finishes up Matthew's Gospel. So let's take a look at Matthew 28, verses 18 through 20, at least the first half of verse 20. Then Jesus came up and said to them, "All authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Therefore," now here's his charge to his followers, "go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name," that's singular by the way, "of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit." So there is one more indication that Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, a Trinity, make up the Godhead, a single God. And then he finishes here saying, "teaching them to obey everything I have commanded you." So that their responsibility given in the Great Commission, of course, is go out, tell people about me, have them understand what's true about me, have them become followers of me, and then continue to improve their knowledge and their understanding of who I am and what it means. Jesus claimed to have been given sovereign control, meaning what? He has absolute control of heaven and earth. He had and still has absolute control of God. So when we talk about God being sovereign, that means Jesus is sovereign. But it also means the Holy Spirit is sovereign and God the Father is sovereign, because the three are of one essence. Three personalities, one essence. They're all identical in attributes, understanding, desires, and so forth. Jesus associated his name with that of the Father. That is, his being and essence is exactly the same as the being and essence of the Father. And that same being and essence is true of the Holy Spirit. All three are one in essence, three in personality. Jesus' humiliation was over. He's no longer simply a man. His glory had arrived. He was sovereign. He was absolutely in control of everything going on in heaven and earth. How does anyone doubt that Jesus spoke here of the Trinity? And given one more important reminder in the last half of verse 20, Matthew closes with, "And remember, I am with you always." How far? To the end of the age. An ending word of encouragement, eternal support and carrying by the one who has absolute sovereign control. It can't get any better than that, folks. So, let's look forward to what's next, and it's going to include some teaching of the followers, and the 11 in particular, and will take us both to Luke, but more importantly, a wind-up in the first chapter of Acts. And in 2 more sessions, we will move on to another shorter study.